The woman, according to the story, had been ill for 12 years. Seeing her, Jesus said, "Take heart, daughter. Your faith has made you well." The woman's faith allowed wholeness to shine through the illness, and she was healed. As an emanation of God, wholeness is our birthright. Wholeness maintains our body, mind, and emotions in perfect balance. We release any belief in illness, lack, or limitation, and focus our faith on the wholeness that has always been present. I affirm wholeness, and I am healed. Jesus turned, and seeing her, he said, "Take heart, daughter. Your faith has made you well." And instantly the woman was made well. Matthew 9:22. And so it is. Amen. At Unity, we are an affirming ministry that honors the many names of God, the many faces of God, and the many paths to God. We bless all people of every race, color, and creed without exception. The Unity movement was founded on prayer, and for more than 130 years, Silent Unity has been praying with people throughout the world. Prayer gives you the comfort and strength to face any situation. Your prayer requests are considered sacred and held in strict confidence. If you'd like to submit a prayer request, there are forms in the back of the seats, and there's also forms in the back corner right next to the door. There's a vessel you can place it in, or you can put them in the offering baskets as they come through at the end of the service. We'll pray for you for 30 days in our Silent Unity healing service every Wednesday, and then we will send those prayers off to Silent Unity, and they will pray with you for another 30 days. And we know that the power of prayer can be very dynamic, and whether we are aware of we're being prayed for or not, there's a divine energy that shows up in our experience. I'd like to acknowledge our musicians and sound crew today. No drums today, but we have Gary, who is on the bass, and it's a new experience for us.
Uncle Albert.
All right?
This is Albert.
Yeah.
Uncle Albert, right?
And I was saying at the first service that I was just very moved at the versatility that Gary has in terms of his instruments and things that he does, and I appreciate that. And we have Leanne on the piano, our beloved Leanne, and our guest, well, not a guest anymore. You're kind of a regular now. A regular musician is Rennie Yarrow, and she's here today to fill in for Julie, who's gone this week. And then we have our crew at the back in the sound booth. We have Brian on the slideshow. We have Todd is filling in today and sound, Todd. And then we have Mark doing our live streaming. And we want to welcome all those who are on the live stream and just appreciate you and glad that you're here today. So now, let's all stand and prepare as we sing our opening hymn. And after our opening hymn, let's remain standing and greet each other.
To this now moment.
ready?
One, two.
A song of praise is a good way. It's a very good way. A song of praise is a good way to start your day. A song of praise is a good way. It's a very good way. A song of praise is a good way to start your day. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. A song of praise is a good way. It's a very good way. A song of praise is a good way to start your day. A song of praise is a good way. It's a very good way. A song of praise is a good way to start your day. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
All right. What a way to start, huh? Okay. Now, is there anybody here for the very first time at Unity? You want to raise your hands? We have a guest from North Carolina. Yes. So we welcome them. They're actually members of Unity. And anybody else? No other new folks? All family today. Okay. Well, that's great. Okay, we have some wonderful opportunities at Unity, and I want to share with you those opportunities. You also have most of them in your bulletin. And the first thing is our Fall Faith in Action home study groups are now starting to form. They're not going to actually be meeting until mid-October, but we're starting to form the groups and do the training for the facilitators and home hosts. And so it's time to sign up for a Fall Faith Home Action Study Group if you would like to join one. There's sign-up clipboards in the hallway as you leave on your left on the second set of, there's a lot of sign-ups out there. So on the second row there's those sign-ups. And basically, there are homes in different parts of the area, Hayden, Post Falls, North End here, there's a couple downtown. So there's, they're around. I think there's 7. Actually, I think we have 8 because we had another one that showed up that isn't out there yet. So we've got plenty of opportunities for folks. So just sign up when you at a group you'd like to join. This 6-week lesson series that is surrounded this Faith in Action program will be guided by Brené Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection, along with a thoughtfully prepared workbook. Now, Brené Brown has been a guest on Oprah and been on Super Sunday, and we've actually done a fall program based on another book that she had several years ago. So she's a wonderful author, and it's a wonderful program. So each week, the lesson topic for the study groups will be introduced in our Sunday services as a part of the lesson that Sunday. And then together we will find that imperfections are a critical part of our lives. And we will also discover, by accepting and embracing them, that we are worthy of love and good things, and a discovery that can be life-changing for many people. The Faith in Action study groups will wrap up on the Sunday before Thanksgiving. To celebrate, we'll have a special Gratitude Sunday Pie and Quiche social. Also today, we'll have an orientation for the home hosts and facilitators from 12 to 1. So it's going to be a fairly quick thing. We have something else going on at 1 that I'll talk about in a minute. It'll be in the Friendship Hall near where the TV is. So just show up as quickly as you can. And there'll be a light snack that will be provided. Gaia and Michael will be here, and myself to facilitate that process. In addition, we need one more facilitator. So if somebody is interested in facilitating a home study group, please just come to the facilitators training, and we'll show you what you need to do. It's a wonderful opportunity to learn how to be a good host and guide. All the materials and questions are provided in the workbooks, and also if you would like to offer your home for a weekly small group study, we also have the possibility of that. And you can see myself or Geraldine or somebody else, or Gaia. So there are about 12 copies of the book out for sale out there. They're $10 each. I got them on Amazon for it was $9.50 per book. So we're selling them for just about what we paid for them when you include tax and everything. So just if you want to get one, there's 12 copies there. You can pick it up after the service, and that's it. This afternoon at 1 o'clock in the sanctuary is the Greater Tuna. And it's the second performance of the Greater Tuna. And the first one was Friday night, and Carrie and I went to that. And it was a fascinating exercise in watching people change characters. I mean, it was really interesting that the costume changes and the character changes and behind the whole story that went on. And so if you want a really kind of a fun play to come to, it's $15 a person. You can buy tickets at the door, and it's a fundraiser for both Unity Spiritual Center of North Idaho and for Church of Truth in downtown Coeur d'Alene. And so we're delighted to be in relationship in that way to do something good for our community. So Real Happiness is a meditation group that is now meeting. I'm facilitating it. It's on Tuesday mornings at 7 a.m., 7 to 8:30. We gather, and we're working through the book Real Happiness, which is a book about meditation and the blessings of it. And so then it's also an experiential class. We spend time meditating. You can still come to the group. Just show up Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. There's also a sign-up sheet out there. If you want to put your name down, I'll send you an email just to remind you of that as well. It's offered on a love offering basis. And if you don't have the book, that's okay. I do a little summary of the lesson each week, and so you'll have that as well. You can also join the weekly online discussion group we've started called A Course of Love, which is a kind of a follow-up to the Course in Miracles in many ways. And so I would invite you, if you want to be a part of that. It's an online study group. It's Wednesday evenings from 6:30 to 8. And all you need to do is sign up as you leave today if you're not already on it. And then I will send you an email which will have the link and have the explanation as to how you get on. I have a hand being raised.
Are we still doing the Course in Miracles?
Yeah, well, I'm getting to that. That's next. It's not next, but it'll come here. Next weekend is the fall plant and yard sale here at the church. So be sure and get your unwanted clothing, household items, and perennial plants together. The ones that if you want to thin out your perennials and put them in little pots and bring them here, you certainly would be great. That's one way of handling that. And any household items that you'd like to sell. We're going to have a whole bunch of tools that we're going to sell that came from a donation that was made to the church earlier this year, from a family who it was a bequest, actually. And so we're going to have a lot of stuff to put out for this particular sale. Best-selling author and investor Mae McCarthy will present a Sunday lesson on October 6th entitled Partnering with Your Chief Spiritual Officer for Abundance and Freedom. Partner with your Chief Spiritual Officer, your CSO, for abundance and freedom. Mae is a very sweet and loving lady who is also a very successful person in terms of starting businesses and creating successful business experiences. And she has agreed to come here. We actually booked her a year ago. And she has a very powerful message. She has 2 books that she wrote. Both of the books, she sent in advanced copies here, so they're on sale today. You can buy them also at the same table of the Imperfection book on the way out as well. And if you get one in advance and read it before she comes, you'll probably even be more ready for her powerful message. It's easy to feel warmth and affection with people and in situations where we feel safe, and our views are heard and supported. But what happens when those conditions change? The Joy of Love in Turbulent Times, which is the title, reveals how to cultivate realistic and far-reaching love that is joyful, steadfast, and unconditional under any circumstances. presented by well-known author and Buddhist nun, Thupten Chodron. Thank you, Brian. Thupten Chodron.
She is the head of the monastery up near Newport.
Right. Yeah, and actually I met her at North Idaho College. We were doing a diversity panel down there not that long ago. Really sweet, very well-spoken lady, and I know you'll enjoy. And she speaks to a lot of folks, and so I'm sure you'll find it. It's October 20th is when it's going to happen on a Sunday. Also, don't forget the A Course in Miracles group is transitioning from the daily lessons to a study of the text starting October 8th. And so, as a result of that, the group will not meet on September 24th or October 1st. So the next 2 weeks it won't meet, but then it'll pick up again the following week on October 8th, which is a Tuesday. If you plan to join the Drums of Unity this week, make note that they will meet on Wednesday instead of the usual Tuesday meetup. And finally, it sounds like I'm going to tell a joke, doesn't it? Feels like it anyway. And finally, have you heard about the global climate strike that is occurring this weekend to coincide with the UN's Global Climate Summit? In support of this initiative, a local grassroots movement, which is headed by Heather Ross, who was a part of our congregation for a long time, and she came and approached us about doing this. Local grassroots movement is forming in Coeur d'Alene, and it's called the Extinction Rebellion. Group will meet weekly to explore nonviolent ways to compel government action on climate change. So it's just a nice opportunity if you're into that space where I am in terms of loving the planet and wanting to be a voice on that, then this is your opportunity to do that if that feels right to you. And I think there's a flyer that you can get out in the Friendship Hall about this. So for more details about what's happening here, refer to your bulletin or go to our website at unitycenter.org, or like us on Facebook and share our events with your friends, because there's lots of them. And having said that, now let's prepare ourselves for a time of yes.
I have a question. That Course on Miracles, is that a beginning course? I've never done that before, but I've always been interested. So
It's an ongoing group.
It sounds like it's already.
It's an ongoing group. It's been going on for years.
So you can join anytime.
You can join at any time.
Anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lifelong process.
Yeah, yeah. Just show up and they'll tell you.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah. Now let's prepare for meditation.
You are sacred love. Sacred love is all that you are. You are sacred love. Sacred love is all that you are. Show the way, God, show the way. I want to live in such a state of grace. Lead the way, God, lead the way. I want to live in such a holy place. You are sacred love. Sacred love is all that you are. You are sacred love. Sacred love is all that you are. Sacred love is all that you are. Sacred love is all that you are.
Now I invite you, if you would, just to close your eyes and just begin to feel the loving presence of the Holy Spirit move throughout your being. We open our hearts and our minds to the experience of God as the Spirit moves in and through us. And we feel this loving presence in all parts of our life. And as we allow Spirit to move through us in these powerful ways, we know that this is a sacred experience, that we are sacred, that we are unique expressions of the one presence and the one power that we call God, the good, omnipotence. And so as we feel this love and energy and joy of God, we also know that this brings to us a new way of living, a new way of being, a new way of experiencing life, a new way to see the world, to view the world, to see the world through the eyes of God, through the eyes of our heart, through the eyes of kindness. For a loving God would only express a sense of kindness. Through the eyes of compassion, for compassion is the very nature that brings out the best in us. Through the eyes of joy, for we are filled with great joy when we recognize our relationship to the world and how it is that we might show up that makes a difference, not only in our own lives, but in the lives of everyone that we touch, every hand that we hold, every person that we look into their eyes, every being that we encounter, every phone call that we make, every email that we send is filled with the divine energy and the divine presence and the love and compassion and joy of God in some way, shape, or form. For when we send forth those statements that are important in dealing with our daily life, we send with them prayer. The prayer of love, the prayer of healing, the prayer of joy, the prayer of life. We think of the receiver of our messages as a divine being, and that this is a divine communication. And this communication is there for the greatest good, the most powerful experience. And when we do this, we begin to experience a healing. For we recognize that we all need healing in some way, in some place in our being, whether it be in our thoughts, in our bodies, in our relationships, in our finances. Healing is a powerful energy that moves in and through the Holy Spirit, and it is always present to us. And so we open ourselves up to the healing power of God. If there's a part of your body that needs healing right now, just put your love and attention on it. Just love it into wholeness. Appreciate that you're going through a difficult challenge. Appreciate that this challenge is bringing you someplace that you haven't been before. An opportunity to open up and go deeper in spirit. And so we see the healing presence of God moving in and through the bodies of each person here, healing whatever needs to be healed right now. We see the presence of the Holy Spirit healing relationships that may need healing, that we become more open to the lessons and the blessings of the connections that we have with others. We become more forgiving. And as a result of forgiveness, our heart becomes more peaceful. We call forth the healing presence of Spirit in finances, that we may have a high relationship with our finances, that Spirit provides whatever is needed for us, if we will simply open ourselves up and know that truth, and that we are more relaxed and more comfortable and more joyful knowing that truth. And so as we heal these experiences in our life, we grow and unfold and become what it is that we have come here to be in service to humankind in some way, shape, or form. And so let us take this energy flow as it moves throughout the congregation and beyond to those in your life that you may wish to pray for, and just hold it, silence of our being. And so in the power of this silence, we are healed. And so it is, in the name and through the power of the living Christ. Amen.
I used to think that I could not go on, and life was nothing but an awful song. But now I know the meaning of true love. I'm leaning on the everlasting arms. If I can see it, then I can do it. If I just believe it, there's nothing to it. I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away. I believe I can soar. I see me running through this open door. I believe I can fly. I believe I can fly. I believe I can fly. See, I was on the verge of breaking down. Sometimes silence can seem so loud. There are miracles in life I must achieve. But first I know it starts inside of me. If I can see it, can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away. I believe I can soar. I see me running through that open door. I believe I can fly. 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 I believe I can fly.
Thank you, Rennie. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I believe I can fly. That's right. Absolutely. Well, I dressed up today because I thought it was the first day of fall. Turns out it's the last day of summer. And I should have come in flip-flops and whatever. Actually, I discovered that, interesting enough, when I was looking up the equinox, because we're right in the equinox period here, and it's actually fall tomorrow at 12:50 a.m. So we're close, right? But technically, unless you measure the seasons meteorologically. So if you measure the seasons meteorologically, then fall begins September 1st. Winter begins December 1st. Spring begins March 1st, and summer begins June 1st, because they measure the seasons by the average temperature over a period of 3 months. And the highest average temperature is June, July, and August of the year. So that becomes, doesn't that make sense? I don't think it's fair that we have to go through this convoluted business of whether it's the 20th or the 22nd. I think we should do it right. So anyway, it is the last day of summer. And I guess I should be blessed and say we have one more day of summer than I thought. So that was great. Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. One of them was saying to the other, says, "I know the world isn't fair, but why isn't it ever unfair in my favor?" Don't you ever feel that way? I think fairness, since we're in this kind of the space where tomorrow is the fairest day of the year. There's exactly 12 hours of darkness and 12 hours of sunlight. Now, we may experience a few more minutes of light because light bends from the equator. It bends, and so, but the sun still goes down. So we get exactly 12 hours of whatever in both directions. And so it's the fairest day of the year, so I thought it was a good Sunday to talk about fairness, because fairness is an important issue for many of us in our lives, because it often doesn't feel like things are fair. Is it fair that we only have one day a year where we have the equal amount of darkness and light? Now, 2 days. That's spring, that's right, 2 days a year. Well, out of 365. I realize that's not a big deal. But is it fair for me to be born into a upper middle class family, fairly stable upper middle class family, and for somebody else to be born in a family where there's dysfunction and violence and many of those kinds? Is that fair? No, it's not. Is it fair that somebody that's less qualified gets a job over somebody that is fully qualified to do a position? Or somebody gets cancer and somebody else doesn't? There's quite a high incidence of that issue. Or is it fair that my father, who started smoking at age 16, lived to be 86 before lung cancer finally got to him at that point in his life? Is that fair? Because somebody else might only live to be 40 or 50 or 60 and didn't smoke at all. I mean, we see situations where that often is the case. When I was on the Camino, my last day on the Camino de Santiago, my feet were in bad shape. Most of you know that, and I had them all bandaged up, and I was still walking on them, but I shouldn't have been. And this really sweet lady said, "Let me look at your feet." So I said, "Okay." So I showed her my feet. She says, "We've got to go to the doctor." Now, probably wouldn't have gone to the doctor myself, but she says, we got to go to the doctor right now. And she was from Barcelona, Spain, so she was fluent in Spanish, and she actually spoke English quite well. And so she took me to the doctor, literally, and she was my interpreter. And my experience would not have been nearly as positive if she had not have been there, because I wouldn't have known what was going on and what they were telling me, and she interpreted, and so it became a much better experience. And so the next day, she left on the Camino, and I left to go to Lyon to find my way back home, because the doctor said you can't go any further. And so she was kind of an angel that showed up, when you need somebody. She was right there. And so I wrote her an email after I got back, and just to check in with her. And I never heard anything back from her, and I thanked her for being so sweet and kind and compassionate and being helpful. And so about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I thought about her, and I thought, I wonder how she's doing, because I hadn't heard back. And so I sent her an email, and she sent me an email back just a couple days later. And it was really long, apologizing for not having responded to my other email, sharing with me that she did finish the Camino, and what she learned on the Camino is that she really loved being of service to people, and that's something that she wanted to take into the rest of her life, and so she shared with me that. But the other thing that she shared with me is the fact that she was just recently diagnosed with lung cancer. And she had cancer a few years ago, and it was cured, but then it came back. And so she talked about what she's doing and so on and so forth. And my response was, when I wrote back, and I told her that I was sad. I was sad that she got that news, because I know what struggle she's going through. But you could feel in her words that she was very committed and dedicated and focused and so on and so forth. And so I was sad, and that next year when I'm at the Camino, maybe Carrie might come and join me, and we'll come down and visit her in Barcelona and see her cured of cancer. And so that's the way I sort of left it. But it just kind of bothered me that it just seemed kind of unfair to some extent. This fairness thing, here's this sweet, giving, loving lady, and all of a sudden she has to deal with this issue in her life. And so how do you reconcile that? How do you get your arms around that and lots of other issues? I think fairness is a big issue for a lot of us in our lives, and it causes us, many times when we feel that life is unfair, it causes us to respond and react and inappropriately to situations in our life, and in doing so create more challenges for ourselves, because we haven't come into relationship to it in a way that is helpful and constructive and I think appropriate in the context of our spiritual journey. The big truth is that there's no such thing as unfairness. That unfairness is not, in the big cosmic macro picture, possible. Because of the way the universe has been created, fairness is the way in which the universe balances itself. So unfairness occurs when something is out of balance. When the universe needs to come back into balance, oftentimes that causes karma. You can call it karma, you can call it cause and effect. There's lots of different terms for it. But, we live our life, and we have these thoughts and feelings, and we have actions and behaviors and so on and so forth, and not all of them are of the highest and best, many times, at least for me. And so those thoughts and feelings are energy that we send out into the universe, and they will come back in some way or form. And if we have not taken the initiative to transform that energy in some way and to understand it, then it will affect us in a way that we're not happy about. And it will seem as though there's an unfairness. And in the micro world sense, that's true. It does, in that moment, in relationship to everything else that's going on, if all we looked at was that moment, it does feel unfair. And for my friend in Barcelona, it must feel unfair that she has to deal with this again at this time in her life. And so my core belief is that when we move into a recognition that life is fair in every way, shape, or form, everything that happens is part of the divine plan and the divine picture. And it's not that there's some preordained thing that happens, it's that when you set up a law, like cause and effect, and the energy moves and it comes back in a circle and comes back to you, that's just automatic. That's just the universe designed to help us to learn and to grow and to unfold and become closer to Spirit, to God, to understand more of who we are every moment of every day. That's what's going on. But in a big picture, we live, I believe if we're eternal beings, if we really believe that we're eternal beings, then we must have lived many lifetimes in some way to be eternal. And so the lifetimes that we live, we're in this process. In our current life, who knows how many of the things in a previous life that are coming back to us both good and challenging for us? Who knows why somebody like Bill Gates can become a 100 billionaire? Basically. What did he do to deserve that? Okay? I mean, nobody's worth that much, in terms of their actions, but what did he do to deserve that? Well, we don't know. He could be being blessed from a past experience, and maybe he's carrying that forward because of, using him as an example, because of his philanthropic work that he's dedicated himself and his family to giving away the great fortune that he accomplished. Oh, we got a deer. We are blessed. It's a fawn too. It's a young one. Still has the spots. Oh, there it goes. Right. Hi. Bye. That's cool. So I think that when we look at it in that context, maybe we'll come back in our next life and do something incredible and be very prosperous, whether it's on this planet or another one. How's that little woo-woo in there? Could be. Who knows what planet we might come back or what circumstance. Jesus, I think, affirmed that. He talked about that. And I think the question we have to ask ourselves, do we really believe what he said? Do we might believe in Jesus as a divine being like ourselves, but do we believe him? Do we really believe what he said? Well, if we believe what he said, and I believe what he said, judge not that you be not judged. For the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure you get. That he is essentially stating the law of cause and effect. I mean, it's that simple. Whatever we put out, whether it be judgment, condemnation, whatever it is we put out there, it will come back to us in some way, shape, or form. And if we recognize what it is that we've done, then we can transform that energy as it comes back to us. When it starts to come back, we're ready for it, right? I got some competition here. How cool is that? See the good things that we've done. We've attracted this beautiful animal to share with us on Sunday. So the measure you give will be the measure you get. So why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. What he is simply saying is, you got to do your work. That it starts with us. It's time to do the work, or continue doing the work, or expand the work that you're doing, or continue to grow, and it never stops. It's until you move on to the next life experience, you are here to continue to do the work. I had somebody today come in and say they were reading the book Imperfection, and said, I've got a lot of work to do. And that's great. That's wonderful. That's what it's about, is recognizing that and saying, okay, you're going to be entertained for a while, doing the work. I mean, it's incredible. Jesus talked about non-resistance, not resisting evil. He said, do not resist evil, do good to those who persecute you. Give good for evil. Walk the extra mile. In that era, it was required that the people carry the Roman soldiers' gear for 1 mile. It was a law. And so if a Roman soldier came up to you and said, here, you had to carry the gear for 1 mile. And people didn't like that. You can imagine if you're walking down the street and that happened to you, you'd be a little resistant about that. Well, that was a big issue in those days. And Jesus said to them, look, if they ask you to walk 1 mile and carry their stuff, go an extra mile. Walk 1 mile for them and 1 mile for you. That you might change he didn't say it, but you might change the energy that occurs. You can imagine what the soldier first would think. When you say, well, I'm going to carry it for another mile. Really? Why would you do that? I'm doing it for me, because I want the benefit of this. I want to serve. Can you imagine the consciousness? That's what he was talking about, is you change the dynamic, you change the consciousness when you're willing to show up in that kind of way. Peter, when Jesus was captured, Peter cut off the ear of one of the soldiers, and Jesus grabbed his hand and he said, Peter, he says, don't. He said, those who live by the sword die by the sword. And that's an admonition that he is saying that what goes around comes around. And the energy that you use, I don't want you to protect me with that kind of energy. That's not what I want. That's not what I taught. That's not what this is about. So if we know the universe is fair, and we're really clear in that, and it's not easy to stay in that space when something happens, but if we know that, then we can live our life with a peaceful heart. We can stand in peace and know the truth and know the good that comes in and through us. I had an experience when I was in my church in South Sound, Unity South Sound, a number of years ago. And I came in one day, and my assistant gave me this note that somebody had left. And in the note, it basically accused me of being self-centered. That was the essence. And I read the note. And when you read those kinds of notes, and it was not signed. That was the other issue. Okay, it was kind of a shot over the bow that wasn't signed. So you kind of sit there. I sat there for a moment, kind of frustrated, and then I thought, okay, there's nothing I could do about it, right? Which is probably the good thing in that sense. But I said, so I began to think back at the ways in which I've shown up and been self-centered in my experience. And there were plenty of them, especially when I was younger. And I believed in that moment that I was much less self-centered than I had been 20 years before, right? So I believed that I had progressed a lot. And so I began to affirm that. And I began to see in that moment that the note actually was a blessing, that it allowed me to explore my journey a little bit and to get in touch with it, and also to become more conscious of how I might show up that way. How I might present myself in that way, or how somebody might perceive that I'm presented that way. And I also know that those kinds of notes are as much about the note writer as they are about me, but I can't take responsibility for that because I don't know who it was. And if they had signed it, it would have been very helpful, because I probably would have even had an opportunity to learn more about how that worked, but I didn't, and I wasn't about to stand up in front of the congregation and ask and announce, who accused me of being self-centered here in this group. So, but that's kind of the way it works when you recognize that, essentially in the fairness context, I didn't feel like I deserved that, but the universe, I guess, wanted to send me a message, and so I was willing to receive it. And if we allow ourselves to do that, if we just kind of step back a little bit and look at it and pray about it and sit with it and realize that it's part of the journey, and we look at it in that context and we do something with it positively, then it's fair. It takes something that is unfair and makes it into something that is fair. And that's true in the small things like that, or even in the big situations that happen in our life, the tragedies and the difficulties and the challenges. I was reading in the paper this morning about the Zeppelin that burned down in New York like 37 years ago. It was in the Coeur d'Alene Press. The Hindenburg. Yeah, it was a Zeppelin, but the Hindenburg was what burned down. And I thought, and I thought about fairness and fairnesses and that kind of stuff, and I realized that there was a great lesson that came out of that, and that is don't use hydrogen in a ship like that. And actually, quite a few people survived that, believe it or not. It was pretty amazing. But I imagine in the context of that situation, those are some of the big things that happen. But when we look at the bigger picture, that it came out of a country that was headed down a very negative path, which was Germany at that time. And so it's not it's very likely that those kinds of things could happen because of what was going on in that dynamic. And so when we see that, we recognize that the universe did correct itself. It was very tragic and difficult, but it did balance itself out. So I think it's important to know that. I think this consciousness heals abuse. It lowers blood pressure. It attracts more friends. It deepens relationships. It brings honesty and integrity into our lives and makes life a great adventure, because everything is an adventure. We are God's loving instruments. We bring conscious balance into our life when we allow ourselves to see it from that perspective. And when we embrace those moments, we grow in ways that we may not even be able to imagine. So on this last day of summer, this day of we're moving into fairness, just let that remind you that life is fair in every way, shape, or form. God bless you. Have a great day. Thank you.
Three little birds sat on my window, and they told me I don't need to worry. Summer came like cinnamon, so sweet. Little girls double dutch on the concrete. Maybe sometimes we got it wrong, but it's alright. The more things seem to change, the more they stay the same. Don't you hesitate, girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your hair down. Sapphire and faded jeans, I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your hair down. You're gonna find yourself somewhere, somehow. Blue as the sky, sunburnt and lonely, sipping tea in the bar by the roadside. Just relax, just relax. Don't you let those other boys fool you. Gotta love that afro hairdo. Maybe sometimes we feel afraid, but it's alright. The more you stay the same, the more they seem to change. Don't you think it's strange? Go put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your hair down. Sapphire and faded jeans, I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your hair down. 'Twas more than I could take. Pity for pity's sake. Some nights kept me awake. I thought that I was stronger. When you gonna realize that you don't even have to try any longer? Do what you want to. Go put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your hair down. Sapphire and faded jeans, I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your hair down. Go put your records on. you're gonna find yourself somewhere, somehow.
Before we bless our offering, I just want to mention that after the service, those of you that are going into facilitators training or the home host training, just go right straight to the fellowship hall, and we're going to get right at it. Okay? So I invite you to take your gifts in your hands. It's a wonderful opportunity to enter into that reality of creating the divine flow. And so we know that as we give, we receive. And as we give in abundance, we receive in abundance. And we make a difference in serving this community of Coeur d'Alene, North Idaho. And so we bless our gifts by affirming our divine blessing.
Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, all that I receive. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, all that I receive. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. At least 100 ways for me to receive. I embrace my good, and I do believe. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. There are at least 100 ways my good is coming to me. My good is coming to me. My good is coming to me.
Let us pray. Father, Mother God, we acknowledge this offering as the very substance of your being, created for our use before the world was formed. We know it has been shaped and formed in our thoughts and in our hearts, and now comes into manifestation through our thoughts and our words, and enters this your ministry with your blessing upon it. According to your perfect law, it returns to each giver heaped up, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. For our increased understanding of this law, we do give thanks. And now, shall we welcome our children in?
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Amazing.
Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
All right. Is this working? Hello? Testing, 1, 2. Okay. So, how are you guys today? Oh, you're awesome. You want to share with us what you did?
We read a Dr. Seuss book. We did a bunch of drawings. It was super fun. And also, the affirmation for today is, when I seek God first, all things come together for my good.
All right. You want to let's affirm that together. When I seek
When
God
I seek God first,
all things come together for my good. And you may need to be a speaker on Sunday. Talk about taking over. Well, her name's Mercedes, so you know that says something right there, right? Very powerful. Very proud. Yeah. So now let's all stand as we join hands and let's sing "Let There Be Peace" on earth.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. Take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever I am, God is, because I am, and all is well. Amen. And can everybody please vacate the sanctuary as fast as they can so that they can set up for the tune-up?